It seems like everywhere you go at this point on the internet, whether it be YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, etc., you will come across someone making a video or a post talking about how the MCU is dead, or the MCU is dying, or the MCU is in crisis, etc. For this video in particular, we're just going to be focusing mainly on YouTube because that is the platform that I know the most about since I've been doing YouTube for 6.5 years now. First off, I'm going to be explaining in this video why these people make these kind of videos and posts in the first place, so you can hopefully understand which YouTubers, which people on the internet to just avoid and not watch their content. But then after that, I'm also just going to explain purely why it's not true that the MCU is dead or dying or in crisis. It cannot be further from the truth. First, I'm not going to call out any YouTuber, any person in particular. I don't think it's useful. I don't think it's good use of time, but what I'm going to say here can be applied to a lot of YouTubers and a lot of people you might watch. So hopefully once I explain this, you can sort of take a look at who comes across your feed and automatically say, oh, that's someone I don't want to watch or don't want to give a view to. A lot of these people that are making these videos about the MCU being dead or dying or, whatever term they end up using, if you look at a lot of their videos, they consistently make a lot of negative videos, a lot of hateful videos, a lot of, for lack of a better term, toxic videos about the MCU. It's a pattern. And why is that a pattern? It's been scientifically and statistically proven that hate and negativity and toxicity spreads much faster on the internet than any kind of positivity. Meaning, with these videos that are about something negative with the MCU or toxic or hateful, these videos primarily focusing on just something negative in general, means it's more likely that someone will watch and ultimately makes that YouTuber more money. And that's what it comes down to. The YouTubers that are making these videos saying the MCU is dead, they're doing it just to get money. And I know you might be saying, well, yeah, duh, isn't that why most people make YouTube videos? Sure, that could be a reason why some people make YouTube videos to make money, but my point is, these people do not care about you as a viewer, but more importantly, in my opinion, they don't care about you as a person. What I mean is, there are people, and I know some of these people in real life, and thankfully they've, sort of realized, but there are people who watch these videos going in with, a love for the MCU or a love for a certain project, a movie, a show, whatever. And then they end up watching these negative videos, and they come out with a negative mindset towards said thing. It literally strips people of their enjoyment of these universes, of these movies, of these shows. And it's not the viewer's fault. They don't know any better. It's the YouTuber's fault. They should know better. They know exactly what they're doing. They know that it's purely just to make money. They see the results, and that's all they make videos on. I should know because around 2018, 2019, I used to make videos covering just any topic whatsoever, anything negative, anything clickbaity or leaks or rumors, purely for the sake of getting views and getting money. Thankfully, I am older now and not as naive, so I know not to do that. But people older than me who have been doing this longer than me are clearly not, and they continue to make these videos without care of the people watching them. They only care about their bank account going up. They don't care about the results it ends up making in these people's heads, where they end up disliking something they once enjoyed because a big YouTuber said it's bad, so the viewer thinks, oh, I should think it's bad as well. So that's just a quick little explanation. Hopefully that makes sense on why people make these kind of videos. But let's get to the meat of this video on why it's just not true. And these are in no particular order. These are just all the reasons that I can think of off the top of my head. If you can think of any more, hey, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all this. The first thing is, a few lackluster results does not mean the MCU is dead. What I mean by that is, we see a lot of these videos be released and uploaded after a project in the MCU, whether it be a movie or a show, underperforms. But let's really take a look at what underperforming means. Now, the TV shows are not in play here. The TV shows, we don't know the actual results or the numbers of it. The reception to the shows on Twitter is not an accurate representation of the general audience. However, I will touch upon the reception to the shows actually a little bit later in this video, so stay tuned for that if that's something you are interested in hearing about. But let's just purely take a look at some of the movies that people are saying the MCU is dead or is in trouble or in crisis, whatnot. The three big ones are Eternals, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and now the Marvels. And that's why I'm making this video in the first place, because the Marvels released this past weekend, and we are now seeing, once again, a surge in videos of people saying the MCU is dead or in crisis or in trouble or dying or whatnot, because the Marvels is underperforming. It is not doing that great at all. I think it actually might have the lowest MCU opening weekend ever. And there are also more reasons for that, which I'll cover later in this video. But let's take a look at some of the other box offices of movies between Phase 4 and now. Let's take a look at Eternals. Eternals was the first MCU movie where people were like, yeah, the MCU's dead. The MCU's dying. Is the MCU in trouble? Eternals made $402 million at the box office. Not great. It had a higher budget, it had high marketing costs. That's not great box office at all. However, let's also take a look at some other movies that released around the same time and what those box offices were. The Shang-Chi box office, which is a phenomenal movie, made $432.2 million. So only $30 million more, which $30 million is still a lot of money, but only $30 million more. And then take a look at the Black Widow box office. The Black Widow box office is $379 million. There's a common thread with those movies that you guys might have already caught on to, but I'll touch upon that in a little bit. Let's now take a look at Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. That box office ended up being $476 million. Outside of those movies, and we're mainly focusing on Eternals and Ant-Man and the Wasp here, like I said, Shang-Chi and Black Widow, there is an outside circumstance that caused those movies to perform that low. Ant-Man and the Wasp is really the outlier here. Let's take a look at some of the other movies that have released in Phase 4 and Phase 5. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness made $955 million. Spider-Man No Way Home made $1.9 billion. Thor: Love and Thunder made $760 million. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever made $859 million. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 made $845 million. All these movies that released during Phase 4 and Phase 5. If the MCU is dying, shouldn't the rest of those movies also reflect that? The Marvels, Ant-Man and the Wasp, those are just a few outliers, a few exceptions. It's not the rule. The MCU now contains over 30 projects, combined movies and shows. It is wild that only these 2-3 movies underperformed. It's wild that there's only been that many. Statistically, probability, there should be more. It is crazy it's only been these so far. The fact that so many of the MCU projects performed as well as they did, it's clear that a few lackluster projects, a few lackluster performances does not mean dead. Following up on that, just because you don't enjoy something, it doesn't mean it's dead or it's the end. Let's go back to 2 examples of these movies that, according to Twitter, the vast majority of people do not enjoy. The first one being Thor: Love and Thunder. Thor: Love and Thunder, a movie that is critiqued a lot online. I personally really enjoy it, but everyone is definitely entitled to their own opinion. Some people were saying after Thor: Love and Thunder, the MCU is dead, the MCU is dying, blah, 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 right? All that jazz. But then we look at the box office, and it made $760 million. Which, yes, is not as much as Thor Ragnarok, which made $854 million. However, $760 million is not a failure. It's not a flop. That is a success. Especially it coming out only a year after COVID. Still feeling the effects of COVID in 2022. What about the other movie? Another movie you hear people complain about constantly online is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. A movie that, as I said, made $955 million. Almost $1 billion movie. That amount of money is in no way a failure or a flop. And then, I didn't mention earlier Guardians Volume 3, Black Panther, No Way Home, the rest of the movies that came out that also did extremely, extremely well. Just because you don't enjoy something doesn't mean that's how the majority feels, and it doesn't mean it's automatically a failure. You are allowed to not enjoy a project. That is totally okay. In a universe that has 30 plus, probably close to 40 now, projects, you're bound to not like a couple. That's just how it is. There's nothing wrong with that. You're not going to love or enjoy every single project in the MCU, and that's okay. To go alongside that, though, whenever we see people throwing out this agenda and this message and this story, if you will, that the MCU is dying or dead, they conveniently leave out all the good stuff that is also released. Let's use the Marvels as an example. The Marvels released this past weekend, right? What else released this past week? The Loki Season 2 finale. You know what was one of the best pieces of MCU content ever? The Loki Season 2 finale, and Loki Season 2 as a whole. But that's conveniently left out of the conversation because it doesn't fit the agenda. You know what's also conveniently always left out of lists of conversations when people are talking about the MCU dying and being on a bad streak or whatever? Black Panther. If you look at a lot of lists or videos and articles that are put out when people are talking about this, Black Panther is always missing for some reason for the previous, the projects released in Phase 4 and 5. The reason is because it's a freaking great movie. And because it's such a great movie, it doesn't help their agenda and their narrative that the MCU is bad or dying. People purposefully ignore the good, and they only focus on the bad, which makes the viewers think that it only is bad because people are only talking about the bad. But that's not the case. We have two more points here that kind of go side by side. There are outside circumstances that have caused some of these projects to underperform. Let's go back to that example I said earlier with Shang-Chi, Eternals, and Black Widow. Let's just remind you of their box offices. Shang-Chi made $432 million, Eternals made $402 million, and Black Widow made $379 million. Overall, especially for the recent MCU, that's not great. Those aren't great box office numbers. However, when did they release? Black Widow released in July 2021, Eternals released in November 2021, and Shang-Chi in September 2021. Man, I wish I could think of something that happened in 2020 and 2021 that would cause people to not go to the movie theaters. I don't know. I can't think of anything. Can you guys think of anything? I can't, personally. All three of those movies came out post-COVID. You could argue still during COVID and in that very, very, very early phase where people might still go to the theaters, but justifiably so, did not feel safe enough to go to the movie theaters or still go out. Because of that, no matter how... Shang-Chi is a fantastic movie. People still didn't go out in droves to see it because it came out during COVID. Eternals came out right after COVID. Black Widow came out in July. A movie that people have been asking for a long time, but it came out right at that turn where COVID was, leaving and we could maybe start going out again. Outside circumstances. We'll never know how well those movies would have performed if it wasn't for COVID. We'll never know. But I think anyone with common sense and anyone not trying to push a narrative on you will say that those movies most likely would have performed much better had they not released in 2021 during or right after COVID, depending on how you look at it. What about the extenuating circumstances and outside circumstances for the Marvels? Now, it's really early to say, honestly, because we don't know the final box office numbers for the Marvels. However, let's take a look at the months and the weeks leading up to the Marvels. Was there anything going on in the industry? Anything going on that could impact people going to the movie theaters? I can't think of anything. Can you guys think of anything? The WGA and the SAG strikes were the longest strikes in history for the industry. The SAG strike ended literally the day the Marvels released. Up until then, Iman Vellani, Brie Larson, Tiana Paris could not promote the movie. There's a reason why these actors go on talk shows to promote their movies. It's not just for funsies. It's not just for the hell of it. They do it to promote the movie to get more people in seats. If it wasn't doing anything, if there wasn't a reason behind these actors going on talk shows, they wouldn't be going on talk shows. The studios would not be spending money to put these actors on talk shows unless there were actual results that came from it. The Marvels did not have that same marketing push with the actors promoting these films that the rest of the films did. That is an outside circumstance. Now, how much or how little it affected the box office, that is up to debate. We'll never know, but there is an outside circumstance there with the Marvels. Ant-Man and the Wasp is the outlier here. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, while I enjoyed it, a lot of people just didn't. And that's okay. That happens. Like I said, in a universe where you have over 30, close to 40 projects, that's going to happen. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Especially now, in a Marvel Cinematic Universe specifically, where more and more we're seeing projects be more and more unique in terms of the vision and style. Ant-Man and the Wasp, you could argue, is one of the movies that isn't as unique in terms of the vision and style, but look at Eternals. Look at the Marvels also, for example. Very unique styles and tones for those movies, and very much the style of the director and what the director wanted. And sometimes it'll work, like with Guardians 3. And sometimes it just won't for people, like Eternals sometimes, you know? And that's just how it also is going to be. A very common critique of the MCU from people have been how cookie cutter and how similar the movies have been in tones and styles. So if you want more unique styles from directors, yeah, that's great. I don't disagree with that. I would love more unique styles from directors when it comes to these films and shows, right? But with more unique styles and tones comes some projects that you just might not enjoy as much because of that. Some of the styles will work for people, some won't. That's just how it is. There's a reason why a lot of these movies are so quote-unquote cookie cutter because, you know, it's been proven that people enjoy that style. As soon as they branch off one way or the other, some people are going to be turned off, and that's just how it is. But the other final outside circumstance for a lot of these projects, within Phase 4 specifically, is Bob Chapek. We got to talk about Bob Chapek for a quick minute here. And how all he wanted to do was just churn out content like there's no tomorrow. A lot of the shows, specifically towards the middle of Phase 4, right, and the movies, they were rushed. They were. Even as someone who enjoyed a lot of them, they were rushed. Chapek just wanted to push out content, which is something Feige never wanted to do. So when Bob Iger came in, I think close to a year ago now, if not a year ago now, I forgot exactly when he took over the reins again, he was like, yeah, let's stop. Let's not be just rushing out and churning out content just for the sake of churning out content. Let's make sure these projects are good like they used to be. Let's make sure, let's just go back to how we used to be doing it and taking our time with these movies and shows and not just churning out a ton of content to make sure they're good. And that's what they're doing now. And that's what Feige always wanted. But Chapek was the CEO of Disney during that Phase 4 time where all these shows and movies were being made and where a lot of these, you know, early Phase 5 projects were in pre-production and getting greenlit. So there was that just stamp from Chapek that it was not going to live up to the predecessors because of the rushed production period. I hope all that made sense. I hope all that sort of helps you realize that if you thought the MCU was dead or dying, that it's not, and people are just saying that for money and for views, and that they're just trying to take advantage of you, and that they don't really care about you as a viewer or as a person. Now, if you just don't enjoy some movies or shows, like I said, that's not an issue. There's nothing wrong with that. You are totally entitled to that opinion. Hey, even if the MCU is not your thing anymore, if you're just not a fan of the MCU, if you're just not watching the MCU anymore as a whole, again, there's nothing wrong with that. That is totally within your right. That is, you are totally entitled to that opinion. But saying the MCU is dead, dying, or in crisis is just not true. And I hope this video did a good job of explaining that. If it didn't, let me know in the comments as well. This was a video where I just sort of did it on the spot because I got too fed up from there's being so many videos of people saying it was dead and dying. Today's video was supposed to be me talking about why I think we haven't entered the golden age yet of the MCU, which will come out either next week or the following week. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, let me know in the comments your thoughts on this video. What do you think? Do you agree, disagree? Please let me know in the comments. And if you haven't already, feel free to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss future videos every Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you next time.